Lot number 1. Here is a capital woman and her 3 children, all in good health.
Skin is good.
£40, gentlemen, to load.
We lost a couple of hundred on the passage.
£70 once, £70 twice, so.
It's unbelievable that we were doing this to fellow human beings just over 150 years ago. Do you know that over 1 million Africans were transported like this to British colonies during the Atlantic slave trade? When Wilberforce and his followers got the trade abolished, the British government had to pay £20 million to slave owners as compensation, one of the biggest payoffs in history. Not long ago, I was asked to open an exhibition by the Anti-Slavery Society. Now, I hadn't heard of them before, but they've been around for 150 years, since not long after we abolished slavery in the British colonies in the 1830s. I was surprised to find out that the only part of slavery that has actually been stamped out is its name. Now, in the abolitionist day, you could tell a slave by the chains he wore, but today they're invisible. That hasn't changed the truth of Rousseau's observation that man was born free and he is everywhere in chains. These Mauritanians are slaves. Though they don't wear chains, they are bought and sold like beasts of burden. The Anti-Slavery Society took the BBC to Africa to make this shocking film in 1983. The white Moors own the black Haratine, who tend their fields. Now news comes that the same situation has developed in southern Sudan, where the Dinka tribespeople are being enslaved, partly as a result of the civil war there. Slaves are now so common in the Sudan that a child can be bought for just £10, a sixth of the cost of a rifle. That's what's called chattel slavery. But the Anti-Slavery Society investigate many different kinds of slavery, from child labor to debt bondage. It's a global problem. They tell me that a staggering 200 million people work in conditions which they recognize as slavery. I've been looking at just some of those who have been captured on film by concerned filmmakers. Now, this rice costs almost nothing, right? But you wouldn't dream of ordering it unless you had a curry. Yet for millions of people in Asia, this is the best they ever get. And quite often they don't even get that. Now, interestingly, some of the hardest lives are led in former imperial colonies. The Philippines, for instance, used to be a Spanish colony until the Americans got their hands on it earlier this century, and now they're independent, or at least some of them are. Now, that's where these rattan chairs come from. Now, the conditions which they're made under are bad enough, but the rattan wood is collected by a tribal group of people called the Dumagats, under conditions which are quite simply slavery.
The slave trade is hidden away in the Sierra Madres mountains. The people you're about to meet have been slaves all of their lives. Every day, these 2 brothers and their children are sent up into the mountains to gather rattan. Barefooted, they climb for 3 hours to reach the rattan. It's covered in thorns and crawling with stinging ants. This slave labor killed Artemio's wife. Now he's forced to watch his children working for the master.
This is the only life we know. We have no other way to live.
Have you ever tried to escape?
We don't think about escape. We just barter with the master.
What do they get paid for this? Not a cent. The slave master gives them just enough rice to keep them working. The slaves have so little, not even a plate to eat off. They must be among the poorest people on earth, yet the slave master says he treats them like his very own children. In the Philippines, you can take your pick from the Dumagat tribe. For just a couple of $100, the slave master Paulino will sell you a whole family. What would you charge for a strong man, woman, and a boy, say, of about 10?
I bought the family for 3,000 pesos. I will sell that family to you for 4,000 pesos.
£100 for a family. That slave master claims he owns these people because of debts supposedly incurred by their ancestors. But he keeps upping the interest so that they can never pay it off. That's called debt bondage. And the Anti-Slavery Society brought the Dumagats case up at the United Nations last year. They say that debt bondage is one of the most widespread forms of slavery, but it goes unnoticed simply because it's so common. They reckon India alone has 5 million bonded labourers, all of them unable to escape the chains of debt. Swami Agnivesh, a former state education minister, runs the Bonded Liberation Front, which educates workers to fight for their rights. He also tries to get an indifferent world to take these issues seriously.
These are the hands which break the stones in the stone quarries south of Delhi. 14 to 16 hours of hard work is very common. Now the women also work and the children also work. Everyone in the family works. From 4 o'clock in the morning they begin, and there is no limit till they can endure it. And they are made to sign on blank papers, put their thumb impressions. These poor illiterate people do not understand what they are doing, and they are easily entrapped into the clutches of unscrupulous labor contractors and their masters. And what they get in return is meager food, some ration, some wheat, some lentils to eat and survive and work, and that's all.
We and our children take schools for granted. But for millions of kids in many parts of the world, they just don't get to go to school. Instead, they work. They do all sorts of jobs, like helping the adults in the fields to long hours in the factory. And like it or not, this is something that should concern us all. Because a lot of what these children produce, like food and clothing, ends up here, and we buy it. These dolls are destined for British shops, part of the flood of cheap goods from the Far East. During the 80s, Thailand cashed in on the trade started by Taiwan and Hong Kong. To get export orders, the labour has to be cheap, and that tends to mean child labour. In Thailand, at least 2 million children help their families eat. How? By being sold to sweatshops like these. Sam Rong was one of these children, sold by his parents to work in Bangkok. His tragic story was filmed by the Anti-Slavery Society's Norwegian counterpart, using the actual place where he worked and a cast of children who had themselves been rescued from this kind of slavery.
ปวดท้องเป็นไรอ่ะรีบทำงานหน่อยสิเอาไปช่วยกันหามันลงไปข้างล่างไป
Samrong was eventually sent home because he became too old to work. But he didn't make it. He collapsed on the bus, and before he could reach his parents' village, he died. The sweatshop was raided, the children freed, and the owner sent to jail for just 4 weeks.
In rural India, the children of Basap village have long been up. They rise at 2 every morning to make glass bangles, supplementing their family's meagre income.
It is essential that these issues are aired. And even while we were making this film just 2 weeks ago, I saw this disturbing report by ITN.
The lock industry of Aligarh is typical of the dark Dickensian world of child labour. Some breathing emery powder from the buffing machines, prone to crippling respiratory diseases. Others innocently dipping hands in acid baths used for electroplating. Archaic stamping presses, all too often claiming little fingers. A new Child Labour Act introduced 3 years ago prohibits the employment of children under the age of 14 in mines, factories and hazardous jobs. Yet surveys estimate there are 44 million working children in India. For youngsters who know nothing of school or playtime, the kilns of Chorori are their classroom. Officially, India is determined to abolish child labour, though even the government admits it simply hasn't the resources to match the magnitude of the problem. Their legislation has had little impact, and if anything, exploitation of children is on the increase. In reality, India's economy has become dependent on child labour, while employers have profited from this cheap, honest, submissive workforce, often treating children no better than slaves. 10-year-old Govind still earns his keep at the furnaces of Firozabad. Like 50,000 other children working in the glass industry, nobody has stopped him toiling in this wretched, dangerous sweatshop. Amid the heat and poisonous dust of this inferno, children grow up stunted and illiterate, their eyesight damaged, their lungs destroyed before they reach adulthood, their life expectancy reduced by 1/3.
It all seems a million miles away from the cosy, cuddly experience of childhood in Britain. Oh, what's that? So that's 749 in kilos. In my language, 14. Oh, so that's 16 pounds. 16 pounds 8. That's excellent, isn't it? They're good in there. Yeah. Now here in Thailand, we make quite a few bubbles because they're selling babies by the pound now. Yes.
Some children were even sold by weight at an average of 1,000 Malaysian dollars per pound.
The Centre for the Protection of Children's Rights in Bangkok filmed their own investigation, which led to the busting of a ring of child kidnappers who were selling Thai babies for adoption in Malaysia. 70-year-old Boon Ma confessed to abducting babies from their unsuspecting mothers.
If her figures are reliable, that means about 600 children a year were abducted and smuggled across the border by this gang alone. The CPCR was hoping that perhaps the parents might be able to recognize some of them. When Mrs. Sompit realized that one of the children on the TV news program was her missing son, Anuchaklit Jampi, she went straight to the CPCR office to seek assistance in getting her boy back from Malaysia. The CPCR accompanied the mother to retrieve her son from Malaysia on May the 31st, 1988.
We know that there are other gangs still in this racket, and thousands of children still to be reunited with their parents. More human misery for the anti-slavery society to cope with.